Hi, I'm Pastor Rhonda.
And I'm Pastor Seth.
You're listening to Growing Hope,
Living Faith. Well, welcome back to Growing Hope, Living Faith. We are so glad that you guys are listening in. And yes, we did miss last week, unfortunately.
Yes.
But life just kind of got busy for us, but that's okay. We are back on tonight, and we are now recording at Wednesday night. It is just shy of 9:30 for us.
And I'm already yawning.
Yes, you have been yawning a little bit as we've been talking, and so tonight, hopefully, we got to make sure it's riveting to keep you. Nah, you're going to do great, but no. So you've had a lot going on, and
Yes.
you've told me a little bit about that. You've been, I guess, did some songwriting today.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So this was the coolest story. One day, probably 2 weeks ago, I was sitting up here in the mountains, and I heard this bird that kept singing like these two notes, like da-da, da-da, over and over and over and over. And it was so annoying because I was trying to read my Bible, and this bird just kept singing these same two notes over and over. And then I thought, well, I did have a co-writer one time to tell me that she tried to figure out the melody of a bird and, try to use it in a song. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could. So I went to get my phone to record it, and the bird had moved down a key and was singing different key notes. Like, you just totally threw me.
Yeah.
And then it went back up to the exact pitch, the da-da. And so I went to my keyboard and I found the two notes, and then I started playing those and playing chords underneath it. And then our mentor, I'm in a mentoring class, and so my mentor gave us an assignment to write a song that's got some kind of a rhythmic motif kind of thing, or it could be a vocal melody kind of thing,
right.
Where you repeat it over, and that's kind of the cool thing about the song, and that's what everybody remembers about the song more than anything. And so I brought the idea to my co-writers, and I said, this is all I got, y'all. I just got this da-da, and I started playing a little fun chords underneath, and they're like, oh, I love it. And so that same day, my granddaughter had been really, really hard on herself. Like, I don't deserve this family, just this woe is me kind of thing. And I said, I would just love to write something that would just be encouraging to, what would you say to young ladies? And, so anyway, we wrote this song, and it goes, oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're beautiful, and it goes,
Very
it's
nice.
got that all the way through it. And I made a demo tonight of it, and it's real pop sounding, and
Very
it's just
nice.
got that bird all the way through. And I'm not a fan of birds. Anybody knows me, I'm scared of birds. But it is kind of a cool story because that's just nature. That's, this bird's probably singing praise to God. And so we stole his melody and we put it in a song.
Well, that's awesome.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
truly you can make a beat or, out of anything.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
I'll
huge.
have to send it to you later. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, would love to hear that for sure. So, well, very good. Well, we are obviously in this season of Easter still, kind of like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and it's been a fun season so far for me. I've been excited.
Meaningful.
Very meaningful. As we kind of continue on, and we are pushing on towards Pentecost. All right. So Pentecost kind of is the next really, really big thing that we in our Christian calendar are looking forward to and pushing towards, which is a huge day for, the church as a whole. But the lectionary passages for this week, they really... they take almost all of them take a picture or take a look at this mentality of God, of one who shepherds his people. All of them really kind of point and really kind of focus to this idea of a nourishing God, of a loving God that journeys with us and that is with us. And the shepherd and sheep I guess theme is very, very prevalent in a lot of scripture, especially with Jesus. Jesus oftentimes would describe us as sheep. And but one of the passages that we'll talk about today, or we're going to be talking about tonight, is going to be the Psalm 23, which is a very, very, very familiar passage, I think, for most people. But maybe we're going to be looking at it a little bit different because, as we were talking earlier, and I'll let you kind of dive into this a little bit. But more often than not, we do read this a lot at funerals. But maybe why should we maybe look at it a little bit different?
Well, I think it's because we don't really see the movement going on in the passage. But and like you said, it's just very familiar. Even non-believers can probably quote,
Right.
"Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." And you see that like at funerals and movies. And
Right.
but the thing is, it's not really about death. Even where it says, "I will dwell in the house of the Lord ever and ever." That's not like some future thing in heaven. That's now.
Yeah.
We dwell with Him now, and then. But there's just a lot of life in this passage. And if you break it down, you just see that as God is our shepherd, He really does meet all of our needs. And we see
Mm.
these spiritual needs met and physical needs met um, all through this passage. And again, it's like it's a journey. And a journey is something that you're living, that
Right.
you live through. And even in that valley of the shadow of death, it's still a shadow, and it's something that you're moving through. I think we hear the fearing and the evil part, and we hear the shadow, all of those mysterious, lurking, kind of scary
Mm.
things. But again, you don't notice the little word through, and
Yeah.
it's something that we go through. But yeah, it's just a very familiar, very comforting passage. And I was hesitant. Do I want to preach this passage, because it is so familiar?
Right.
And does it do people tune it out? But I feel like there's just a lot going on in the world,
Mm.
and we need to be reminded as we're going through this journey on this earth as it is now, before it's redeemed completely. It's rough, and we do need to be led, because we are sheep. And Max Lucado says that sheep are dumb, dirty, and defenseless, and we need to be led, because we don't always find those quiet
Mm.
places and those places of rest on our own. We need a shepherd to lead us to those places. And that's why I want to preach that. I noticed in our prayer time last week, there seemed to be a spirit of heaviness, a spirit of worry. I mean, our country's at war. We have people, in my church requesting prayer for those that are involved. And I see just so much on Facebook, even with our own denomination, to pray for these countries that's trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus during this time of war and provide basic food and shelter and things like that. Those are heavy issues that we're going through.
Yeah.
And I think a passage like this is comforting to kind of get our mind off of everything and just, that first verse, the Lord is my shepherd.
Mm.
I shall not want. I mean, we could look at that in circle like the Lord, like Yahweh. He is so worthy of all of our praise, but then He's my shepherd. He's not some generic shepherd. And so I think it's good sometimes because I feel like I do a lot of preaching where I'm focused on, what do I do with this? So my response is, I'm supposed to go love people and be the hands and feet of Jesus and go and go and go and go and go. But I do think it's good, especially in heavy seasons, to be reminded that there's times that we need to be ministered to. And how beautiful is it that the Lord serves us like we see in this picture? I mean, we're used to serving Him and doing things for Him, but this is such a beautiful passage where the role is reversed, and He is like catering to our needs.
Yeah. Which once again, I think is just a great representation of the reality of Jesus. He said so Himself. He came not to be served, but to serve, which, I think is a huge foretelling of the reality of what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus. I think we've probably talked about the upside down pyramid. What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be part of ministry? We're not at the top, we're at the bottom, and we are just breathing life into people. And I think that's what this passage really really points to. And like I said, there is so much going on in the world around us. Scholars, there's differing viewpoints on potentially when this was written by David. Most do essentially point this to David, since he was a shepherd growing up. But most believe that this probably probably was later on in life. So he's already gone through all of the struggles and all of the temptations and all of the failures and mistakes and the hardships and and the issues with his family and his sons and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so, but most people believe essentially that this was probably later on in his life, that as he had experienced all of these things, he was able to kind of look back, and this is a reflection of the reality of the goodness of God in his life.
Right.
Even in, like you said, even in the midst of the struggle, even in the midst of sometimes the doubt and fear that we may have and the struggles we may have, we can go to a psalm like this, and it really, really is a beautiful thing. Our Sunday school class is actually doing a book on this right here. So Randy, please forgive me if I don't get to make it to Sunday school a lot. Lots of times I'm practicing piano during Sunday school. It's kind of my last just cram, make sure my finger positioning and everything is good. Kind of by myself, just running through and just making a lot of mental notes. And so I was in there a couple weeks ago, and it was really, really good. But they're reading a book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like Psalm 23 from a shepherd's point of view. And so a shepherd actually sat down and kind of talked about, as a shepherd, this is some of the meaning and stuff that I take away. So, not to pull away from that, but then also, I'm sure our conversation will probably be a little bit different than some of the things that he says as well. But that'd be all right as well.
Randy, by the way.
Huh?
I said hi, Randy.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Shout out to Randy. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to read Psalm 23 once again. It's something we're familiar with, but I'm going to kind of read it a little slow. And I just kind of want you just to breathe it in as I am kind of reading it, and just allow it to soak once again, because we are so familiar. Kind of focus on just every word, just kind of focus as it's being read. Let's just kind of take our time as we kind of get through this passage. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long.
That's so good.
Yes.
And I wonder at the time when David wrote that, if he knew how profound of a writing this was, or if he's just sitting somewhere with a pen and a journal, like me. And he just
wonder if he heard a bird that morning and was like, oh, I wonder if I can, maybe he heard a sheep. Maybe it's like the bah, bah.
Maybe that's it. And he was like, yeah, just like I've been a shepherd, that's how God has taken care of me.
Yeah, I am the sheep.
Yeah, and it is. And like I said, it does cover every area that we have needs: emotional needs, spiritual needs, physical needs, eternal needs. And it's all wrapped up right in one beautiful passage. And of course, the first verse, it just grabs you right in the very beginning. The Lord is my shepherd. Yeah. I lack nothing. I shall not want means that I have no lack.
There's contentment.
That's not, you're not coming up short, because the Lord is Yahweh and he owns everything. He's a great provider. He possesses all things. And so it's just amazing to think that the Lord owns it all, but yet he gives it away.
That's a hard statement, though, at the beginning, too. Once again, like to declare that the Lord is my shepherd is no easy task. Because we like to be the shepherd, more often than not. We want to be the shepherd of our life. And we often want to shepherd other people around us. And we think we have that right and that ability. But man, like from the get-go, David is just laying it out there. The Lord, he is my shepherd. And it doesn't matter, that I want to be shepherd. Like, I am choosing to lay down my shepherdness and allow him to lead me and to guide me and to show me the way. And so, even from the very, very get-go, like you're right, that the Lord is my shepherd, it's a loaded phrase on such a deep level. But it requires submission. It requires us to, like I said, to be sheep, which sheep are not very well looked upon. Sheep are pretty stupid animals as a whole. Sorry, that's word there, but they were pretty. My daughter would be like, "Oh, you said the S word," and but yeah, they're not very smart, and and so but that's kind of what David is saying. Is like, hey, I'm not very smart. And
we're like sheep because we don't have the sense to go find the places that we need. We don't have the sense about us to go find these peaceful places. We keep making things more hectic and more hectic and more hectic. And we need a shepherd to lead us to those places. And he makes us lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. It's not rushing waters because you wouldn't be able to drink. Yeah. The sheep couldn't drink from rushing waters and scary kind of, water. But he gives us what we need. And I also read, too, that sheep are kind of like camels, that they can go for a long time without water. And they can drink up to 2.5 gallons at one time. But the goats are real independent, but sheep, they have to depend on the shepherd to find that water for them because they've gone for so long and they aren't capable, where goats are a little more independent. But sheep just aren't capable. They're kind of helpless. And so the shepherd go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there, the other reality too is like lots of times as we are going through life, it's so easy for us sometimes to forget or to believe that the grass is always greener on the other side. You know what I'm saying? And I love this kind of mentality of like, he makes me lie down in green pastures. Yes, he brings us to these places where he desires for us to be, and he brings us to water, and he gives us that which is needed for life. But we, like sheep, it's so easy for us to see something else or to see other sheep, not necessarily where God wants them to be, and to say, no, that's where I want to be, right? Like I want to be over there. And so the grass is always greener on the other side. But what it means for us to truly be able to say, Lord, you are my shepherd, man, it means that as he leads us into these places, we are going to trust that this is the best place for us now, and that we're not alone. And like I said, it's so easy to just look out and to say, man, they've got it better. I want to be over there. But it's like, no, God has us here right now for maybe some reason. And it may look great over there, and we may think that that's the best for us, but this is where God has us right now. And so he is leading us and he is guiding us and he is shaping us. And so it's important that we don't look at others and look at other things and say, no, I'm going to go over there, because that's when we get into places of chaos, and that's when we become our own shepherd, is when we begin to say, no, I'm going to go over there because I think that grass is greener over there.
And he does know, because this next verse says, he refreshes my soul, which that's beautiful in and of itself, but he guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. 100%. Because we're not capable of finding the right path. We need to be led to the ones that are right and the best ones for us. And it's his reputation that's on the line. Yeah. And, it's like we're prone to wander, and we're prone to get lost, and we need that guidance as to what the right path is. And, it's his reputation, so that
Mm,
we can't take the credit for it.
yeah.
We have to say, he's the one that brought me through.
Mm.
It's his character. And, anyway, I just love that. But like I said, that first part is beautiful too. He refreshes. Don't we need refreshment?
Yeah.
Our souls need to be refreshed, and we need the shepherd to do that. But I love that part. But yeah, that's the other. That's just kind of a loaded statement
It
too. He
is on
guides me
such a deep
along the
level.
right path
Yeah.
for His name's sake.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. Like you said, when we oftentimes go off on our own and we look around the world, it is very chaotic on such a deep
Yeah.
level. And when we leave the shepherd, and like you said, go and do it on our own, then it does become very, very chaotic. And the way that we can truly have rest and truly have comfort, we think is, once again, when the grass is greener on the other side, we think that that's what's going to give us this peace and this blessing and this. But David, looking back, he's like, listen, that's not what brought me peace, right? You think and look back once again, like at the story of Bathsheba, and he thought that this was going to be something that was going to bring him pleasure. Well, in the end, it brought him a lot of grief and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And it wasn't just him that suffered; it was his family that suffered too, because of this reality. And so, it's not a very peaceful place when we decided to live life on our own and be our own shepherd. And so there is this truth that as we allow God to lead us and bring us sometimes into not easy places. The grass is green. The water's still good. He is the one, though, that will bring us peace, because where our shepherd is, that is where we can really, really have peace.
Right. I agree. And then it's kind of interesting because we've been talking about these beautiful green meadows and the still water, and it's also peaceful and sweet. And it does seem to change in this next verse, because in here we're going to see where God meets David's emotional needs, his fear. But he goes from this beautiful green meadow to like a terrifying kind of picture. He's in a valley, the shadow of death. And, in valley, I was reading about that. There was dangers of flash floods and attacks from animals and outlaws, and and it is scary.
Yeah.
But a shadow means that there's light somewhere, and the shadow reminds us to walk to the light. And if it's too dark, then the shadow reminds us to stick close enough to Him, and He keeps us calm through it. But it says, even though I walk through. He's not going to leave us in this valley. He's not going to leave us in this area that's, in the state or a condition, but we're going through it. And I'd never really noticed that before, because we look at that verse and we see words like evil, fear, dark, we see those words, but the bigger word in that sentence is through it. And He's with these two little words, through and with, because He's with us.
Yeah.
And He's comforting, his rod, his staff, they comfort. But that was the rod was used to beat off wild animals that were trying to attack and that kind of thing. So, these are instruments that a shepherd would use. And David knew that because he was a shepherd, and he knew how he had done that for his sheep. And so now he sees that even in the worst of times, the very worst, the darkest of dark valleys, these shadowy, mysterious, scary places, we're not going to be left there, and we're not going to stay there, and we're not going to be alone there.
Yeah.
So
strategically,
that's so
beautiful. The high ground is the better ground in any fight. If the higher you are, it's harder to overtake. It's harder to, and so it really is like this mentality that as you're in the valley, like you said, you got to worry about floods. You got to worry about all those kind of things with the water rising. But there is this mentality of it is true weakness. Like it is that even when I'm at the point of the weakest, that as arrows or whatever may be plunging upon me as an enemy, like. Even though that's going on and I don't have the upper hand and I do have this weakness, like I don't have to fear, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though all of this stuff may be coming at me, and like I said, it's easy, I think, or it's hard sometimes for us when we look around to have that mentality. It's easy to get overwhelmed and to get stressed when we see what's going on in the world. When we see what's going on, even in our own lives, it's so easy for us to get overwhelmed on such a deep level, and to cower in fear. But fear, once again, it's that opposite of peace. That, like if he's really our shepherd, he's leading us on the right paths for his name's sake, so that we can truly be the people that he's calling us to be, so that we can be the presence of Jesus in the world, that we can bless people as he's blessed us. Like if we really, really believe that, then if we're really following the shepherd, like we don't have anything to fear, right? And once again, that doesn't mean that this life is going to be perfect, and that, we, aren't going to have struggle and even persecution potentially one day as people who follow Jesus and proclaim the name of Jesus. Like, that's not what he's saying. But as we've always talked about, it's that thing of, I have no fear because I know who my shepherd is. I know his desires for me and the relationship I have with him. And I know he is there on the journey with me every step of the way. And so, your rod and your staff, like, they comfort me. And obviously this is before Jesus, but I think for us, kind of looking back and reading this even through the lens of Jesus, when it comes to suffering, when it comes to pain, when it comes to a lot of those things that we are very, very uneasy with, the thing that oftentimes brings me peace and brings me comfort is that we don't serve a savior or a king who sat on a throne and just did his own thing and had power and never had to suffer and never had to do any of that. No, he came, to earth, and he suffered, and he experienced suffering, like we experience suffering on such a deep level, deeper than we oftentimes experience suffering. And so when we go to him, he understands, like he knows, he's experienced. And so, I think for that, as we read this, even through the lens of Jesus, that should bring us a lot of comfort, that even in the midst of our suffering that we go through now, we don't have to have fear. We can be comforted because we know one in this Easter season. We know one who suffered far worse than we suffered.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Really good point. So moving on to verse 5, you prepare a table for me. God's gonna meet his physical needs. He's gonna feed him.
Yeah.
In the presence of my enemies. This is really like just to set out food and have a table. That's like a gesture of hospitality.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, oh, he's doing that for me, but not only in just to feed me, but he's not really making an example out of me, but he's doing this in front of my enemies. And again, that's like a validation that God approves of me. And I don't know, I've always loved picturing that he's that's like making a statement in the presence of the enemies, that he is doing this kind gesture to feed me and set this table and then anoint my head with oil. And we know, of course, oil with sheep, it was like a medicine, that kind of thing. But it was also just honor to anoint someone. So it's kind of cool that, we've changed scenery now from the meadows to the valleys, and now we're at a table. It's kind of cool to see, but we're still moving through this passage on this journey. And, man, and our cup just overflows because we're just blessed in every way. And, I don't know, that's probably one of my favorites in the whole passage. I mean, I love it all, but my cup overflows. It's because we're satisfied. He meets all these needs. And of course, we've already dealt with fear in the verse before, but in the presence of enemies hate you. Enemies want to see you fall. Enemies want to put you out of commission, stop you, kill you. You know what I mean? It's like, do we even know what it's like to have a real enemy? I
Yeah.
mean, we have people that get mad at us, and we have people that don't approve of us, but I can't think of any. I've only had a few enemies in my life that
Yeah.
I think would really cause me harm. But David knew what it was like to be hunted
Yeah.
and chased and hiding in caves where his heart was about to pound
Mm.
out of his chest. And I wonder when he was writing this, if his mind went back to that,
Sure.
in the presence of my enemies. My cup was overflowing because of this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And, because of that reality, the fact that, he prepares a table before us, he takes care of us, he journeys with us, all of those things. This last verse just evermore rings true, right? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I think, once again, if David was to write this at the end of life, I don't think it would. I would imagine the surely would be like a knowing type thing, right? Like, I know he says surely, but my belief is, I think as we get to the end of life, as hopefully as I get to the end of